We are reacting to the wonderful Mark Plummer. He has just dropped his brand new Bigger by the Day cycle inspired by Rich Piana, and I'm going to give you some of my thoughts on it.
We have structured this cycle the exact same as we have structured the diet and the training. As you saw, we didn't do that many exercises of back and we didn't do that many sets, but all those sets were to failure. As the food increases, as the drugs kick in, we can start training harder and harder and harder. This entire prep is drugs down here, food down here, training down here, and as we go through the 3-4 months, they all come up together so that we will get the maximum results and not hit any plateaus.
This is a great approach, okay? When you start your cycle, you want to start small. You want to see how your body reacts to certain things. If everything's okay, you can then increase the dose if you need to.
We've also increased cardio to an hour a day because I'm way too fluffy now. And me taking that 7 weeks off training, 11 weeks off steroids, and didn't diet at all during that time, I kind of put on a little bit too much body fat. So we've also added a few supplements to kind of help aid in body composition to get me back to where I should be.
Okay, he's starting his cycle from an injury, some surgery. He had a pretty rough time recently. He wasn't training, he wasn't really dieting. So, yeah, he's trying to hit the ground running and get back to how he was looking. I don't know if that's often the best approach with the cycle. He said he's going to put in some supplements for helping with body composition. But if he's not feeling good, then obviously he's not going to look good, he's not going to feel good, training's not going to go well. So I don't know what he's going to put in, so let's see.
You guys know from 3-4 years ago that I have been using their GW, their MK, well before I was sponsored by them. And they have hooked it up on this prep. So many SARMs and peptides for free as
You know where I sit with the SARMs, guys. I am not a SARMs fan. We have enough drugs that have been human clinically approved. We've got data. We can see how certain drugs like testosterone, primo, masteron, deca, how they work with the body. SARMs, research chemicals, we have a massive lack of human clinical data. But hey, if he likes his SARMs and he's got a sponsor and he thinks they work for him, go ahead.
as they gave me a discount code, Mark, which saves you 15% off all.
Obviously, he's sponsored, so it might be in his best interest to say, I'm using this and I'm looking really good. You should go and buy this, make me some money. So just bear that in mind.
350 milligrams of test N, which is our base. That's test is the if, all, and be all. Like you guys said, what's the best steroid? It's testosterone. Like testosterone makes you bigger, it makes you stronger, it makes you faster, it makes you more hungry, it raises your metabolism. If you guys are gonna do anything, even against me saying that you shouldn't do steroids, always start with testosterone. It is
full agreement there. Test is best. Good stuff, Mark.
It's going to be the safest, the easiest, the best results that you will ever get, and you don't need a lot of it to notice huge results. For me,
remember, with testosterone, with a lot of drugs, the poison is in the dosage.
No, 8. Holy fuck, that's a long time. I have increased my dose. For the first 6 years, I never went over 500 milligrams, and that was perfect. To start the cycle, we're only doing 350. We're doing 300 milligrams of Deca. Deca is going to hold a lot of fucking water retention, but it's also going to hold
Are you kidding me?
It's also going to hold subliminal fluid in your joints. So you're going to be training more heavy, more aggressive, and you're not going to get those aching shoulder pains, knee pains, elbow pains.
Deca holds synovial fluid in the joints, correct. I'm personally a little bit skeptical about the ratios here. So he's got 350 test nth and 300 Deca. Personally, I don't really like to see Deca at a 1-to-1 ratio. I think testosterone should always be at a 2-to-1 ratio. So if he was going to be using 300 meg of Deca, I personally would like to see testosterone at 600. Obviously, if he was going to be using 200 meg of Deca, test should be at 400. But listen, the guy's experienced, he knows about these compounds. He must feel good at these kind of numbers.
50 10 milligrams of GW. That is just going to keep my body looking a little bit better. It's kind of that raises your base metabolic rate, but we're not in a calorie deficit. So it really just helps me change my body composition, I find, and also aids in not putting too much fat on. 10 milligrams of YK. YK's hit or miss. We're going to add it back in. I mean, I don't think it does a crazy amount of difference.
Okay, you know the Psalms is not really my thing, guys. GW, I don't really know much about it. Don't really feel like it's got a place in a steroid cycle when you've got like a bunch of other good compounds that we know about available. But hey, if he's got his sponsor and they're sending him Psalms and he feels good using them, crack on.
With the myostatin inhibitors, but we're trying to get as big as possible. So what do we have to lose? And obviously those two things are on nextlevelsups.net, as well as the
I think all Psalms don't make a crazy amount of difference when you're using anabolics, but
lose. And obviously those two things are on nextlevelsups.net, as well as the Arimidex. 0.5 milligrams of Arimidex every 3 days, 4 IUs of growth, starting off small, starting off easy.
I think he converts to estrogen pretty heavily, but I know he's also now had gynosurgery, which means he doesn't have the gland there. I don't feel like Arimidex has a place in this stack design. With a better cycle design, there's not really much need to control estrogen. For example, if he was using something like a Primobolan or a Masteron, acting as a DHT, that would cut his estrogen down lower. But I don't know his purpose for having in Arimidex. It also massively skews lipids. So to have them in at the first week of a cycle, when you've already got a bunch of other drugs going on, not the best in my opinion.
4 IUs of growth, starting off small, starting off easy. Week 2.
So he's using 4 IUs of GH. That's nice. He's going to feel good, get some benefits from that. Obviously, growth is a long-term thing, and it's something that you need to invest the money in to find a dose that you can work with for a long period of time. 4 IUs seems perfect.
Week 2 is the exact same as week 1 for the Nth, for the Deca, the YK, and the Arimidex, but we are adding in 350 milligrams of Mast P because I want to get a little bit drier. Like I said, all of this stuff holds a lot of water retention, so I'm trying to combat that by looking a little bit drier by adding the Mast in. Mast also works as a slight anti-estrogen, so as we start to increase our testosterone, I won't need to crank up the Arimidex or the Aromasin. The Mast will keep that even ratio for me. I should be able to keep it at 0.5 every 3 days. But because we are so small and we are so weak right now, we decided to add in 75 milligrams of Anadrol as well.
Okay, so he's added in Mast P. As I mentioned earlier, Masteron is a good anti-estrogen, and he's putting in 75 milligrams of Anadrol. In my opinion, Anadrol doesn't really have a permanent place in a cycle. I think it's a good pre-workout to play with here and there. The dosage of 75 milligrams seems a lot. The highest I've ever done is 1 tablet, which is 50. But I used to play with 25 milligrams fairly frequently on like big training days, maybe 2 or 3 days a week. 75 milligrams does seem quite a lot.
Because that's just gonna kickstart everything, and I'm tired of being a skinny little bit. Now week 3 is where we really start to get into the big boy dosages, which is actually in 3 days from now. We have 500 milligrams of test, 600 Deca, 350 Mast P, 20 milligrams of GW, 10 milligrams of YK. We increased the growth to 6 IUs, same Arimidex, and 75 milligrams of Anadrol. Now this is where I'm going to start to be feeling fucking...
Okay, so not much changing into week 3. He has upped the test a little bit. He's still running his Deca higher than his test, which does seem a little bit odd to me, but like I said, maybe that works for him. Yeah, week 3, he's cranking it up a little bit, but nothing too crazy.
Getting good. Strength is going to be coming back. Food is going to start to be increased, and I'm excited for next week. Week 4 is the same as week 3 because we just want everything to kind of sit, our hormones to stabilize, so that week 5, we have another increase to 750 milligrams of test, 800 Deca, 450 Mast, 30 milligrams of GW, because obviously we'll be eating even more. 6 IUs of growth. Now we are also adding in the 20 milligrams of MK677, because I do not want to increase the growth hormone. 1, because it's just so expensive. And 2, MK makes you more hungry. I'm assuming that week 5, food is going to be hard to get down, so MK will increase ghrelin.
Okay, so in week 5, he's bumped up the test. He's only been on 500 mega test for 2 weeks. I don't know if he would have needed to jump up to 750 straight away. The DECA's gone to 800. This is quite a lot of DECA. 450 mass P, that's only a very small increase. I think he definitely could have got away with keeping the test a little bit lower and bumping the Masteron or the Primo up. The GW, all of that kind of stuff, that's still in there. And the Anadrol is still there as well. So, yeah. Week 5, minus the addition of the test and the bump up in DECA by 200 milligrams, I just don't really like this cycle design at week 5, to be honest with you. The numbers seem a little bit off to me. So let's see what else is going to happen here.
1 milligram of Arimidex as needed, Caber as needed, 75 milligrams of Anadrol. Now we are doing...
Okay, the Caber is to sort out prolactin issues to do with the nipples. Again, he said as needed. With a better cycle design, there isn't really a need for Arimidex or Caber. This is usually coming from when you're pushing dosages unnecessarily, in my opinion.
That for week 6 and week 7. We're just keeping that the same because that is a pretty aggressive cycle. This is probably as close to the most aggressive that I have ever been. And guess what? Week 8, we're going even harder. I wanted to structure...
Okay, so he's running that week 5 for 3 weeks. That's like a substantial amount of time to see how those compounds are going to affect his body, see how he's mentally feeling, seeing some good physical changes, we hope. Let's see what happens in week 8.
This cycle as close to Rich Piana's as possible. And I also want to show that I have amazing genetics for powerlifting. I squat...
Guys, please do not try to structure cycles similar to the king, Rich Piana. I love Rich. I'm a massive fan of Rich Piana, but unfortunately, he's no longer with us due to a bunch of drug abuse. So he's not really the one to be basing cycles off.
Over 800. From this cycle, I'm anticipating to bench 600 and I deadlift over 800. I do not have genetics to be a crazy IFBB pro. I am not going to look like Rich Piana after this cycle, but I just...
You know what I love about Mark? He's a realist. He understands his body. He understands what's good for him. He understands his potential. He knows he won't be the greatest IFBB bodybuilder. He's not shaped for that. He's an extremely talented powerlifter. And I hope that he is able to overcome his injuries and compete a little bit further in that, because I would love to see him go a bit further with the powerlifting.
I want to see how good I can possibly be, how big I can possibly get, because that's what I want to push in my lifetime. So week 8, we're doing 550 test nth, 300 test prop. We're going to be changing the esters just to shock up the body. 400 milligrams.
Okay, so he's going to 550 test nth, 300 test probe, and he says it's to shock up the body. Guys, test is test. Find a testosterone ester that works for you and stick with that. Mixing up esters and stuff like that is... it doesn't really make sense, okay? If you like testosterone, if you like SIP, if you like sus, find that, find your amount, use it, run it in your cycle. Mixing test E, test probe and stuff like that, it doesn't really make sense.
400 milligrams of tren.
What?
You guys know
Okay, obviously the addition of Trenbolone at 400 milligrams is absolutely obscene. The most I've ever done is 600 milligrams, which was absolutely mental. I was not in a good state in my brain. He said he hasn't run Tren for a really long time as well. I don't know why he's chucked it in at 400 milligrams. It seems completely unnecessary. Personally, I would have liked to have seen a very small addition into the cycle. Maybe something like a Tren acetate at 20 milligrams every other day. If he wanted to go with something like a Tren Enfinate, I would suggest going 75 milligrams to 100, but he's jumped in at 400. I've got no idea why.
I didn't take Tren in my last contest prep, but we are adding in Tren for Bigger by the Day because it's fucking insane. So anyone that meets me, sees me, or anyone that comes in contact with me after week 8, I apologize in advance, but your boy's gonna think he's Zeus of the gods. No, I'm just kidding. Like, guys, all of the mental side effects, if you are aware of them, aren't that big of a deal. It's the people that have reverse body dysmorphia that have the problem. That think they're a lot better than they are. I actually hate myself every single day. I think I look like shit. I'm not strong enough. I'm never doing enough. And I actually constantly put myself down every single day.
I thought this bit was really sad, guys, but I get it. And this is a very common way of thinking for a lot of bodybuilders or people that take any sport to an extreme. If you do a lot more of a psychoanalysis on people, there's usually something missing that they're trying to search for, whether it be in bodybuilding or pushing a sport to an absolute extreme to become the best. So I hope Mark's feeling good.
When Tren actually gets in my system, I feel like I live like a normal person because I don't have these negative thoughts that I'm a piece of shit every single day. But
there is definitely a confidence that comes to using certain compounds. Trenbolone is one of them. But this belief in yourself can also come from higher levels of testosterone as well.
At the same time, that's what also helps me grow and helps me succeed. So I wouldn't change it for the world. And
I am in full agreement. The minute you start to believe that you've made it or your physique is the shit, that will be the start of your downfall. The reason why people are able to achieve great things physically is because they always feel that they are not quite good enough.
it makes you strong as shit. But let's be honest, who bodybuilds that doesn't have some type of mental fuckery going on?
100% facts. Bodybuilders have a lot of mental fuckery going on.
600 milligrams of EQ. EQ is good because it's like that thickening agent. You get like really...
No, Mark. No, you don't need to add in the EQ, but I'm seeing here, I think the deck has dropped out and he's replaced it with EQ. I don't know why. You know my stance on this, guys. We must stick to as many human-approved drugs as possible. Boldenon does not fit into that category.
Thick veins, it increases blood flow. It's really going to help the overall look. Same with the
Boldenon is equipoise, by the way.
Trend. Then 30 milligrams GW, 20 milligrams YK. We actually dropped the YK for week 5, 6, and 7 because it's really hard on your joints, I've heard. So I wanted to give it a little bit of a break and then add it back in at a higher dose for the end of the cycle. 20 milligrams of MK and then Caber and Arimidex as needed. Week 9 is...
Okay, I like that the Caber and the Arimidex has gone to as needed. The Psalms can just get in the bin, in my opinion. He's in the beginning of the cycle design, he's saying he's using Deca and stuff so that his joints feel good. And then he's chucking in a Psalm which is meant to cause joint issues. It doesn't make sense.
It's going to be the same as week 8, but we are adding in insulin. I've never taken insulin in my entire life. I'm a little worried about it, but a lot of my friends have taken it. And they say that it's crazy because when I'm going to be eating 600-700 grams of...
Okay, do not be afraid of the insulin. I am a big fan of insulin when used correctly. He doesn't specify whether he's going to be using Nova Rapid or Lantus. Lantus is a long-acting insulin. It's pushed in the bodybuilding community because it's a lot safer. However, it's not a personal preference of mine. I prefer Nova Rapid because I can control when I want to use it. It's not active for the whole day.
Carbs a day. It'll really help keep you lean and looking like full and not spilt over and fat. So I need to do more research on...
If it's done correctly, that is true. However, a lot of people do not know how to use insulin correctly and it absolutely ruins their physique. They become fat, watery messes. People really need to understand how to use insulin and what it does. It's a storage hormone. If your diet is not in check, if you are not eating high protein, clean carbohydrates, low fat diet, I've seen a lot of people really blow out their midsection and look absolutely shit using insulin.
So that's definitely a to be determined, but it's happening.
Mark, if you need to do some more research, hit me up, matey. Happy to discuss insulin protocols with you.
Week 10, we're going to increase the EQ from 600 to 900. Everything else stays the same. And then week 11...
Not a fan of the EQ. I'm not a fan of it being increased. Interesting as well, he put it in at week 8. Equipoise Boldenon tends to take a lot longer to achieve like a high blood serum level. So I think his cycle is about 16 weeks. So I don't know if he's going to come off it like 8 weeks. It tends to only really start to kick in around weeks 10 to 12.
12, 13, 14 is when we absolutely go insane. This is where we are going to be so close to hitting our genetic peak and our genetic potential for this off season that we're going to have to be training, eating, and taking more than we've ever done in our life to really push through that threshold. I'm talking probably 300.
Guys, more doesn't always give you more. I just want to specify that now, okay? Everything else has to be in check, like he says, training, eating, sleeping, etc. But just because you start ramming more drugs into your body, it doesn't mean that you're going to see more results.
100 to 400 grams of protein a day, training twice a day.
Guys, that is standard, 300 to 400 grams of protein. If you're a guy of Mark's size, I think he's about 200 pounds. I always work on a 1.5 times per pound of body weight. Me, I always hit 350 grams of protein minimum every single day, and I've done that for about 2 years.
6 to 7 days a week. Recovery 3 to 4 times. Like, we are not playing games. I want to see how hard it is to really get as big as these guys do, or as big as I possibly can get. So we're doing 1 gram of test.
This is totally fine, okay? Mark's been in the game a little while, and he now wants to be at a point where he really pushes his physique to its highest potential. And unfortunately, to do that in the sports that he's competing in, whether it's powerlifting or bodybuilding, there is drug use involved. Does it need to be as high as this? We don't know. Neither does he, until he pushes those boundaries himself, because he's got a set goal in mind. He's not going to know if he can achieve really everything that he wants.
You can do straight test, mix the esters. Personally, I'm probably going to do nth and prop because I really like that combo. 900 milligrams.
The classic 1 gram of test. I remember back in the day, everyone used to say, oh, if you want to be a pro, you got to take 1 gram of test. It's not quite true, but let's see what else he's doing with it.
900 milligrams of EQ, 500 milligrams of tren with
500 milligrams of tren, absolute nightmare. Good luck. He's not going to be sleeping on this dose, okay, guys? And if you're not sleeping, you're not recovering, you're not growing muscle.
But I'm here for it.
At least he's aware that it is insanity.
AI and Caber as needed. 8 IUs of growth hormone. We're going to be splitting those up 3 times a day. 30 milligrams of GW, obviously to keep us in a...
Yep, 8 IUs of GH. It's a lot, obviously. It's expensive. But the actual prescription dose of human growth hormone when they are giving it to people with HIV/AIDS is actually 18 IUs.
As much shape as possible, 20 milligrams of MK, and then I'm going to add an oral back in for the last 4 weeks based off of how I'm looking. Now, if I'm super fat and I look disgusting, I may actually add in Winstrol just to tighten everything up and look clean. If I've kept a relatively good shape, I'll add in Halo, Anadrol, Anavar. That is going to be completely dependent on how I'm looking. And a lot of these things...
Guys, I don't like how he said, oh, if I'm fat, I'll put in Winstrol. If I'm not, I'm going to put Anavar. Essentially, all anabolic steroids do the same thing. They increase protein synthesis. They help you recover, build muscle. Your diet is always going to be responsible for how you look.
Things are off of how you're looking, but I know my body so well that this is going to be what is going to be doing the best for me. And then week 16, 17, 18 is going to be the taper off period. Obviously, this week is going to be super nuts. We have to come off. We either need to do a low dose TRT or come fully off. It's going to be dependent on what meets or contests or traveling I do for 2024. I know we're already going to Miami in a couple months. We're going to the Arnold Classic in Ohio in March. So everything's gonna have to be playing around that stuff. But we're probably gonna do 700, 750 test nth, some primo around 700, and then 6 IUs of growth hormone, and slowly taper off to our TRT. That's the fucking cycle, guys. So
okay, I get it. The last few weeks, he's just sort of going to consolidate his gains, come off the more toxic compounds, go to a quite high level of test, primo, and keep the GH in. There's some mental bits in this cycle. There's some bits that are also not so mental. Personally, I think he could have just tapered up his dose of testosterone to 750, maybe to a gram. I would have liked to have seen primo or masteron at a 1-to-1 dosage, maybe even higher. I think he could have achieved a better total gram cycle using much better compounds. I don't think the SARMs really have a place in this. I think the growth hormone at that amount will be good. He should see some good results. I know he does stay on top of his blood work and his general health. He said he's doing cardio, so that'll be decent. He should put on a lot of size with this. He trains like an absolute freak. And I just hope he keeps making loads of content on this cycle because it's going to be really fun to watch. Do not copy what he's doing, guys. Mark's been around for a little while. He's been playing with compounds for a substantial amount of time. And he's got personal goals that he wants to achieve. How would I have potentially structured this cycle if I wanted to do something absolutely crazy? I would maybe go something like 750 test, 300 deca, 750 masteron. You know I'm a masteron over primo kind of guy. Masteron just sort of works better for me. Maybe 100 to 150 milligrams of tren, and 50 to 100 milligrams of anavar, I think would be enough to achieve some pretty crazy results. But Mark wants to put his foot on the pedal. He's been off for a little while. So best of luck, matey. If you are ever in London, England, shout me, bro. It'd be an absolute pleasure to link up. We could do some crazy training. Obviously both looking juicy. Best of luck, and I hope you enjoyed this video.